crash this time, it is not over. I think all indications are that, yes, it hurts. It's going to take a while to rebuild a base and go back up, but I am 99.99% convinced we will be going higher. It is not. It's just a pause that scares people out.
Silver is the structural metal of the future, and they can't get enough of it. So that's why I've been holding on for silver for years. So anybody who wants to, let's say, speculate, I think silver today is the best, almost better than gold. Going, why am I here? It was the best thing I could have done because I was here. And then I keep telling people buy silver. Oh, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. Today I'm smart.
The recent volatility in the precious metals market is being mislabeled as a crash, even though technical indicators suggest it is a necessary consolidation within a powerful secular bull run. While the sudden price drop is designed to shake out speculative weak hands, the underlying demand for silver as the premier structural metal of the future remains insatiable. This pause allows for the rebuilding of a firm technical base, providing a strategic entry point before the next explosive move higher. For long-term investors, the scarcity of physical metal in the commercial sector serves as a 99.99% conviction signal that the current peak is nowhere near the final destination. David Morgan, publisher of the Morgan Report, and Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, have long championed the role of hard assets as the ultimate hedge against fiscal instability. They argue that silver is currently positioned as a superior speculative opportunity compared to gold, primarily because to its extensive industrial use in green energy and technology sectors. Despite the stupid label often assigned to silver bulls by the mainstream media, the fundamental reality of an ongoing supply deficit cannot be ignored. The market is transitioning to a phase in which physical possession outweighs paper pricing, and those who maintain their positions during these emotional scare events will be the primary beneficiaries of the inevitable revaluation. Now, we present the clips from their interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
I think all of us really know any commodity stock that goes parabolic like silver did is going to correct. It has to. And of course, the markets across the board, be it the ag, softs, financials, or the metals, going parabolic, you're going to see something. When it goes that strongly parabolic, then the faster it rises, the faster back. So we saw a really great market, 540% up in silver and platinum, and then what we saw in January, 70% move, 70 to 124, I believe was the high, and bang, it got hit hard on the 30th of January and got smashed over 30%, and that's a big gulp. It's really harmful to anybody, physical owners, especially people on leverage that got shaken out. But that's how markets move. So was it the banks? Was it this combination of a lot of things? But it was an overbought situation that needed. So that's my take. Going a bit further is everyone, not everyone, but many said this is the biggest crash ever, and blah, 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 blah. It's a huge crash, probably the biggest since 1980. But Silver Thursday in 1980 was a bigger crash. In 1980, on Silver Thursday, which was in March, I think it was March 27th, 1980, you can look it up and correct me, we went from roughly $20.60 to $10.27. So we had over a 50% crash. The important point I want to make about saying that again is this. After the 1980 crash to 10, that was it. That ended the bull market in silver. And then we drifted lower over the next few years and more years, basically drifted down to roughly the $5 level and stayed for almost 2 decades. Being a silver bull in those days was like kind of a dumb thing. You wanted to be in other assets. You want to be in other asset classes. You really didn't want to touch a market that's moving sideways for that long. Having said that, the bigger the base, the bigger the bang. When you trend sideways for 20 years, you have built such a humongous base that once you start to rise, it's really going to roar, and it has, and we're seeing that now. So the final point is this, Kai. The 1980 crash of Silver Thursday, that was that time. Now this crash this time, it is not over. I think are that, yes, it hurts. It's going to take a while to rebuild a base and go back up. But I am 99.99% convinced we will be going higher. It is not just a pause that scares people out. Lastly, that's because a bull market shakes off as many participants as it possibly can. And it's really good at shaking off the people that never jumped on the bull's back before. And what I'm referring to are the Johnny-come-latelys that are going to get rich quick and buy silver at 100, going to 200. Watch it go to 120 and think they are the smartest guys on the planet. only to wake up on Monday and get a margin call they can't out back.
Well, it's about time, but I think people should understand why.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I bought my first, not bought it, but I started saving silver in 1965. And in 65 was when they started putting copper into silver.
Yeah.
So you hold up a coin, it was copper or silver. And that was Gresham's law, when bad money enters the system, good money goes into hiding. But the reason silver is taking off today is because in the industrial age, iron was the metal. So iron made steel. Today, it's the information age with technology. Silver is the metal. So you look at AI coming on board, solar, and all these things everybody talks about. Silver is the structural metal of the future, and they can't get enough of it. So that's why I've been holding on for silver for years. I had, they call it green boxes, silver eagles. I was buying for $5. They're $105 a coin now. But because silver is an industrial metal, it's the metal of the future, and they can't get enough of it. So anybody who wants to, let's say, speculate, I think silver today is the best. Almost better than gold. When gold and silver move up in tandem, it means the smart money is dumping dollars and going to gold and silver. On top of that is information age, the technology age. So silver is going by itself now. I started saving silver for one reason. I knew because of the Zimbabwe dollar, when it collapsed, the question is, David, what's money? So let's say the dollar goes down, the loonie goes, the Canadian goes down, or the euro goes down. Then the question is, what is money? And so that's why I started saving silver eagles.
Yeah.
Because if a push came to a shove, the dollar goes down, the Canadian dollar goes down, the euro goes down, I can still take that silver eagle and exchange it for food. It's still money. Gold and silver are money.
The transition from the industrial era to the information age has fundamentally redefined silver's role from a simple precious metal to a critical structural component. In the past, iron was the backbone of global development, fueling the rise of steel and traditional infrastructure. Today, however, silver is the indispensable metal of the technology age, serving as the essential conductor for artificial intelligence, solar energy, and high-tech electronics. This shift from a transactional asset to a vital industrial requirement provides a rising floor for silver that did not exist during the 1980 or 2011 cycles. As the physical supply continues to be drained by high-tech manufacturing, the market is entering a new phase in which industrial scarcity overrides paper market volatility. While the recent 30% crash on January 30th has been compared to Silver Thursday in 1980, the underlying mechanics are vastly different. In 1980, the crash marked the end of a bull market. Today, it is merely an aggressive shakeout of leveraged speculators and Johnny-come-latelys. The massive 20-year base built between 1980 and 2000 has created a technical launchpad for a much larger, multi-decade expansion. When gold and silver rise in tandem, it signals that smart money is divesting from fiat currencies like the dollar or the euro and seeking refuge in the ultimate form of money. Holding silver today is not just a speculative play, but a strategic move into the primary collateral of the digital future. Let's get back to the interview.
People don't know this, so I'm going to digress a little bit, but it's important to understand. And in fact, there's a paper on the silverinstitute.org's website. Find it. I forget the title, but it's type in what you just said, Kai, why did silver deficit not move the price? And I think it'll bring up the article. The article's probably 3 or 4 years old. But we had a physical deficit for 15 years in silver. From 1980 to 2005, those 15 years, we had a structural deficit in silver of average of 100 million ounces. As you just said, this time it's 200 million. But remember, we're mining about double. Regardless, 15-year deficit and the price hardly moved. So what happened? Well, to make supply and demand equal, which they must, we had roughly 2 billion ounces in fine silver in the silver category commercial bar market at the high in 1990, and we just drained it away. So we ate up 1.5 billion ounces of silver under those 15 years. And the price didn't hardly budge. Why? That's the big question. And the answer is because the paper paradigm worked so well, the banks had so much control, and more important, anytime the physical demand was made, which obviously was made, averaged 100 million ounces a year, there was enough silver to supply the needs of the physical offtake from the COMEX, London too, but let's just say from the exchange and the LBMA to meet that demand. So even if it's the last car on the lot and you sell it, but there's no more demand until you can restock, you've met the demand and everything can be copacetic. So that's what happened. This time around, I won't say sharks, but let's say the more savvy, more aware, and more attuned to what's going on in the global financial system are looking at it and seeing the deficit. Now they're using it to their advantage. So really, the structural deficit in both cases was very important. In one case, it was ignored because people didn't know better or understand what was going on. This time, even though the structural deficit is greater, it's well understood. And especially on the industry side, because going back again, 1980s, there wasn't that much physical demand for industry. This time there's a lot. So as I've said in other interviews, a lot of industry is not thinking in terms of price. Of course they want to get it. That's why the whole Silver Users Association was established, was to make sure that industry got a fair price on silver. The Silver Users Association has gone bye-bye, but industry still wants to get a good price. But price schmice, they're going to look at ounces. I need X amount of ounces. They're going to worry about price, but not as much as they're going to worry about how many ounces do we need at Samsung over the next 3 years to maintain our business development and current business. That's the question they're going to. And if Samsung is asking it, you can bet Tesla's asking, 3M is asking, a lot of other Apple computers ask. So I see where this price smash, as bad as it looks right now, could be a boon to the commercial users that say, hey, wait a minute, we paid $100 the ounce, a month ago, and we only got 70% of what we need. Let's finish up what we need, get their last 30%, and just make sure you don't go higher than $85 or whatever to bring it home.
The historical disconnect between silver's supply-demand fundamentals and its price action is rooted in a paper paradigm that suppressed the market for over 2 decades. Between 1980 and 2005, the silver market endured a structural deficit averaging 100 million ounces annually, yet the price remained largely stagnant. This was only possible because the industry was able to drain a massive 2 billion ounce stockpile of commercial-grade silver that had accumulated by 1990. Today, however, that above-ground buffer has been exhausted, and the paper-to-physical leverage ratio has reached a breaking point. With global exchange inventories currently at multi-decade lows, the ability of banks to manage the price through futures contracts is rapidly evaporating amid relentless industrial offtake. For modern industrial giants like Samsung, Tesla, and Apple, the priority has shifted from price to guaranteed physical delivery. Unlike the speculative traders who treat silver as a line on a screen, these commercial users require physical ounces to maintain production of high-tech batteries and electronics. This resource lockup is leading corporations to bypass traditional exchanges entirely, securing supply through direct mining prepayment deals. As the market enters its 6th consecutive year of deficit in 2026, the current price smash to $81 serves as a strategic window for savvy industrial players to finish loading up before the physical shortage becomes a systemic crisis. Share your thoughts on their analysis in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more financial insights. Thanks for watching.